Joining me today to celebrate Six Music's 90s Forever is Nicky Wire from Manic Street Preachers. Nicky, are you there?
I am. Nice to speak to you again, sir. You all right?
I'm good. Where is there?
In the studio, in Door to the River, Manic's HQ, giant shed, retreat of middle-aged men.
Listen, you and the band grew up in Blackwood, South Wales. I'm just wondering, what was Blackwood like in the 90s?
It was a mining town which, undoubtedly felt the full force of the previous decade. So I still loved living there. I had the best of times. And I loved playing sport. I loved a couple of the pubs and clubs, etc. But I think if you came from the outside, you might have thought it was a bit more, not decaying, but it'd definitely been through hard times. Unemployment, just with mines closing down, it was just lots of older men in job centres thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah. A lot of those places that were hit by the sort of austerity of Thatcherism and stuff like that, from the outside they might look like kind of rough around the edges sort of places, but once you're in those communities, they're so close and so close-knit, and everyone's going through it together, that sometimes you can sort of, have a rose-tinted view of that, and nostalgia-wise, and think, everyone was going through the same thing, so everyone was, I wouldn't say happy, but everyone got on with it, if you know what I mean.
I completely agree, and with an immense sense of kind of fatalistic humour as well, which has stayed with us, and that kind of, a kind of funny cynicism, which I think you find in lots of those kind of places all around the country. But there was still a creative element in the place as well, and I just loved being in my mum and dad's house, and my brother as well, just listening to music, and then lucky enough to be in the same school as James, Sean and Richie is pretty remarkable anyway. So we always felt really cocooned, and just in a kind of lovely soft bedroom atmosphere. Even though, like I said, when people visited, they might have found it a bit harsh.
I mean, you studied politics at uni, and your music is heavily political. So what sort of things were inspiring you throughout the 90s? Well,
we were. In all honesty, we were in the kind of crucible of the miners' strike. So when me and Jim's, the first song we ever wrote, which was called Aftermath, which was just about the miners' strikes, I think we wrote that in 85, and that was the first song we ever written. I mean, Neil Kinnock's constituency house was 4 doors down from James's, maybe 5 doors down on Survivors Road.
Wow.
So it was a very politicised area, loads of working men's institutes and lots of sort of almost like relics of a former time in some respect of people self-improving their situation. So it was, I'm really glad we lived in. I think some bands, the environment helps to make you. Some bands are just chucked together and it's purely music, and that's brilliant as well. But for us, our environment certainly dictated the way we felt. We were very, synced in with each other in terms of that.
Your debut album, Generation Terrorist, was released in 1992. What was the music scene in the 90s like? How did they take to you?
I think it comes in different waves. At the start, we certainly stuck out a bit because we'd sort of had Manchester, Baggy Explosion, which we actually really liked, but obviously we just didn't feel it was for us. And you'd had grunge. You'd had lots of various forms of music which had really become popularised, but we were obsessed with the Clash and the Pistols and post-punk, really, and Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
So we didn't really fit in, but again, I think that worked in our favour because there weren't many bands from where we came from, and no one really looked like us or spoke like us, so we just found it incredibly exciting, I have to be honest.
But I mean, loads of Welsh bands saw success in the 90s. I mean, there's you guys, the Manics, Catatonia, Super Fairy Animals, 60-Foot Dolls, Gorkies, Stereophonics, and you were often grouped together with the label Cool Cymru. What did you make of that label?
Well, that certainly came. We were on our fourth album by then. We'd done Generation Terrorist, we'd done Gold Against Soul, Holy Bible, which was part of Nothing. But when that kind of second wave of bands, I mean, it was just a brilliant time to be in music. First of all, you'd had the huge wave of Oasis or wherever, or Us and Suede, and then you had all those Welsh bands you've just mentioned as well, and they played with us a lot, and all of a sudden you're doing, from playing to 30 people in Aldershot Buzz Club, all of a sudden you're playing arenas and then stadiums at the end of the decade. So it was an incredibly vital time for music. It's hard when you're part of it to take it all in, but the speed, like a lot of my favourite bands of all time from the 80s, even though they're massively influential and were big, they weren't, all of a sudden the amount of records being sold in the 90s by bands you actually loved, it's just staggering. I think it started with the Roses, really. They were the first band to tip over into some kind of megastardom, Stone Roses. And from then on, it was just an upwards.
I mean, that first Roses album still gets voted, it still comes in the top 5 best albums ever recorded in a lot of polls, doesn't it?
Well, it is a masterpiece. It's just so brilliantly produced and some amazing words, the artwork, one of the greatest rhythm sections ever known, and John Squire's liquid guitar. It's a pretty special record. I mean, I love Spreads as well. I wanted to put that into my 90s playlist, but I couldn't squeeze it in. Time restraints.
Yeah. I mean, some people say the Holy Bible is a 10 out of 10, mate, and a masterpiece as well.
Well, yeah, at the time, it was a pretty tough time for us. But recording it was great because we kind of reclaimed the essence of the band. We went to a really, really cheap studio in Cardiff and just recorded it, loads of live stuff, and we were kind of hermetically sealed against the world. Britpop was exploding outside, and we felt totally on a different level and wavelength to everyone else. So we liked being on our own. We liked being just different. It's always been I think that's why we survived so long, to be honest.
Listen, which Manic track from the 90s would you like me to play to the Six Music audience?
Well, I think that the one that defined the 90s for us was Design for Life, because it just took us from an underground cult band to an overground, gigantically popular band.
Okay, this is Manic Street Preachers, Design for Life. That was Manic Street Preachers with Design for Life. My guest is Nicky Wire from said Manic Street Preachers. So, what other bands inspired you during the 90s?
I mean, during the 90s, there was such a varied... I think people kind of lump it in sometimes, whether it's just a decade of lad rock or something, but you had some amazing stuff, from Polly Harvey to Suede to Massive Attack, who doing, something completely different again, to Radiohead. There's a load more variety than is, the Chemical Brothers, Underworld. There was a kind of fusion as well of dance music and indie. It was a spectacular time that has been kind of overshadowed by, the enormity of it sometimes. But there was loads of different stuff going on. And, there's the darkness about Alice in Chains. I mean, Richie and James absolutely they were like the metal Joy Division. Yeah. They were so doomy. It was so sort of stoner rock.
Yeah.
So I think there was, as in all decades, there's always good stuff, isn't there, going on? But it was probably the last decade where you still had tribes, that there was still, which, everything's just kind of mangled into one thing now. But I think it was different there.
I mean, you mentioned Richie there. I mean, because the 90s was marked by both success, as you became household names, and tragedy, after Richie James went missing in 95. How were you able to balance those two massively contrasted emotions?
It was difficult. I never forget when we won two Brit Awards for Everything Must Go, which would have been probably in 97 when we actually got the awards, I think. And, going on stage and playing, and accepting that in front of 10 million people or wherever it was on the telly and stuff. It was pretty conflicted, but also, an element of pride and just wishing that he could have been there as well. So, but there were conflicted emotions because we just would have loved to seen him on a gigantic stage. You know, it would have been phenomenal for the four of us to be going full tilt like we were. You know, because everything changed. You know, after Richie disappeared, you know, we were a different version of the band. You know, we still kept the essence, but obviously it was never going to be quite the same.
I mean, what did the four of you, going back to Blackwood, what did you four of you dream about? I mean, was that what you dreamed about when you were in fifth year or something like that? Fifth year English or something like that?
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about?
It does come across like a Hollywood story, undoubtedly, because it's incredibly romantic to think that me and James have been in the same class pretty much since we were first year of infants. What's that, 4.5, 5?
Yeah.
50 years. You know, it's insane. So by the time we really coalesced, sort of, I guess when we were 13, 14, and the Bunnymen, the Smiths, Simple Minds, Lloyd Cole, Big Country, they were just like, and that progressed to the Clash, and Punk in particular. And I was in university with Richie as well, and we was spray painting shirts in our little flat, you know, which was just Richie would make me a Fray Bentos pie.
Oh, you can't beat a Fray Bentos steak and kidney, mate.
Absolutely, it was like my highlight of the week when he cooked that. I basically lived on Kit Kats and cereal for the rest of the week. But, yeah, so we did have romantic dreams, and we were very much into just the idea of a quintessential band. You know, it was we'd never use a word like artist or anything. It was just, we are a band, we are a collective. And I think that drove us forward, and it gave us some protective armour, really, that we, like a self-support thing, really. You know, we knew what we had to do, and we had a plan.
The new album, Critical Thinking, is out on the 31st of January. What was the process like? Was it just like normal, or did you change anything up? How did it come about?
It was quite fractured. I'll be honest, it hasn't been, this is not like comparing it to the real world, but it was quite difficult, and quite a difficult album to make, just because life catches up and everyone's got kids and everyone's got families, and, you know, you're just sidestepping stuff all the time and doing, we're 55 on our 15th studio album. But I don't know, there was more tension making this album. There's a lot of opposites, trying to make sense of opposites. Doing the album, and I think that's given it a nice bit of anxiety and tension.
Yeah.
You know, some albums are easy to make and they just glide off you and it's brilliant. But yeah, this was quite a nasty process.
Ended up with Nicky Wire as lead singer on a single by Manic's. That's never happened before, has it?
No, and probably never happen again. But I mean, I tried to get James to sing on it, and he just it didn't work, and that was his decision not to sing. He just said that it's got a certain flow that suited my voice. I wrote the music, I wrote the tune really quickly. The lyrics and the music just came in an hour. I didn't even write the lyrics down, which is really rare for me. Yeah. They just kind of unfolded in my mind, and I love the words, the way they kind of. It's just a song that just keeps going without a kind of particular chorus or anything. It's just insanely catchy. So James just said, "No, it's done." So that was it. And a lot of the album is a bit like that. There's 3 songs that James wrote the lyrics for. There's 3 songs I sing on, one of which I just speak on, but we'll say sing. So at times we played in a room together, really live, and at times it was quite isolated as well. So I mean, we're lucky enough to have our own studio, so it feels a shame not to use it. So if one of us just jumps in and comes up with something, then, you know, that can only be a good thing.
Listen, you're here to put together a special 90s Forever playlist for us. So I was going to ask you to talk us through it. What have you gone for?
I mean, I could have gone forever, but I start with World of Twist, which is a song called The Storm, and they were just such an odd band. There were so many real kind of odd outsiders that would pop up in the 90s and get massive record deals. It's just, even someone like Pulp, who would it's kind of been around and really on the periphery suddenly, find their groove and become gigantic. Yeah. And I put Wilder Twist in that bracket, really.
And then you've gone for Hole, haven't you? Miss World.
Yeah. I mean, I think Courtney Love is one of the great voices of the decade and on. And we did a thing in Australia called the Big Day Out, which was a huge festival at the time, which went round all the major cities. And we were on before Hole, and I watched them many nights and thought they were just phenomenal.
And you've gone for, would you say, rivals, super furry animals, if you don't want me to destroy you?
Yeah, like when Fuzzy Logic came out on Creation, I was a huge fan of Creation anyway, going back to the kind of C86 era of the 80s. But in the 90s again, with Teenage Fan Club and Super Furries and loads of other bands. It was such a great label. And the Furries just came out of nowhere, and they just came from a different planet. I still think they're on a different planet now, but again, you can hear the Beatles and Badfinger, but all with this sense of urgency, and they just always put a smile on my face, which is not an easy thing to do.
Nicky, can't wait to hear that. Great talking to you.
You too, sir.
Stick around for Nicky Wire's 90s Forever playlist. It's going to be here at 3:30.